Thank you for doing that, and I think you're going to enjoy this discussion. And again, because this is a smaller group and we have a great microphone that we can throw around, as you have questions, feel free to bring those up and go through them. Whoops. I want to start, I took this picture last time when I was here in India. I got a chance to go to see the Taj Mahal. And as all of you know, it's one thing to see it in a photograph, and it's another thing to see it in person. And it just blew me away. Standing there, looking at the inlaid marble, I just couldn't even kind of fathom how on earth did they pull this off. And there was a lot to be admired about the building itself, and I could clearly see why it was one of the wonders of the world. But to me, one of the interesting things about monuments and buildings like this is I love to ask the question, why? Why did somebody go to the extent to do this? Right? It clearly took years. It was unbelievable amounts of effort. Why? What was behind it? If you ask yourself that question, this was for his wife. She must have been an incredible woman, right? But this was basically out of respect, out of appreciation, and out of recognition for somebody whom he deeply loved. That's at the heart of the story of the Taj Mahal. As you look around all over the world, you will see examples of monuments that are entirely built out of appreciation for what people have done. If you go to Europe, you see, for example, in the middle of Paris, the Arc de Triomphe. Why is that there? The entire structure is there to celebrate accomplishment. Arc de Triomphe, triumphs, victories. That's what it's there to signify for their whole culture, their whole country, to pay attention to being appreciative for that which has gone before. I see this all over the place. In the US, if you visited Washington, D.C., when you fly into Washington, D.C., it's unmistakable to see this column right here. That column is the Washington Monument. At the time they built that, that was the largest man-made structure in the world, 100 feet taller than the Great Pyramid of Egypt. Why? Why does somebody go to the effort, the money, the trouble to build such a monument? It's because they revere George Washington, who happened to be the first general who helped bring about independence for the country and later became the president of the United States. We kind of wish we had a president of the United States like him in today's world. Do you guys want to trade presidents at all? You guys up for that? Can we trade presidents? We'll take Modi in a second. Not Trump. I see a lot of shaking heads. Yeah, I can relate, believe me. But these monuments all over the world, in every town square, what do you see? You see a statue. You see a street. I was in Bangalore and I saw the Gandhi highway. Well, what's that about? That's about out of recognition and appreciation for a man who did an extraordinary thing for a nation. And out of the appreciation of this entire country, live things like that. Street names, monuments, statues, speaking to what we really value and what do we appreciate. And I think it's interesting, and I invite you as you look at different communities, as you look at things like music awards, television awards, movie awards, what's that all about? It's about expressing recognition and appreciation for great work. That's what it's about. People don't build monuments just because the person was a good person. They build monuments because people did something that was great work, something that was valued and appreciated by others. And I think that's an important thing to understand as we enter the topic of culture and appreciation and recognition. This is something that is deep-rooted in society. You can go back as far as you can in recorded history, and you will see example after example that have persisted over the years of people who are being recognized and appreciated for the work that they've done. Now, when it comes to business, I think sometimes we have a little room to go, because sometimes our work environments don't even necessarily match the same as our cultural environments. And that's the case when it comes to the culture of recognition. I love this when we're talking about change. and going through change and building resilient organizations, I like this quote: "The ultimate measure of a man, obviously, or woman, is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy." That's often where you see the real character of people. Why are we talking about change? Why are we talking about so many of your organizations are experiencing rapid growth? That rapid growth usually brings about change with it. How do you deal with that? Others are experiencing challenges, whether that come from economic challenges or industry challenges. We recently ran a study, and we asked the question, how have you experienced any layoffs, any declining sales, or other indications of weakening performance? And we were surprised to see that 30% of the working population report some level of this. This may not be happening at an entire organization level, but certainly at a team level. A lot of people, almost a third of individuals, are experiencing some form of turbulence, some form of disruption, some form of change that they're needing to deal with. That's a pretty big percentage. And I think we need to pay attention to that as leaders, because part of our job is to help keep things calm while we continue to engage and invest that discretionary effort and help people move forward and accomplish great things in the face of controversy, in the face of difficulties that they're surrounded by. And so that's now being part of, I think, a cultural foundation that we need to be mindful of, particularly in HR, as we're thinking about people strategies to help create that degree of resilience in organization to handle the kind of inevitable turbulence that will come if it hasn't already, and has come throughout history. And it just feels like with the pace of change accelerating and much more linkage between global markets, this issue is something that we just have to decide to adopt as part of our people strategy. How do we manage through times of change? How do we help create a sense, as was described earlier, a sense of well-being in a time when there's uncertainty? How do you help navigate your way through that? I shared this in this morning's session. For those of you who weren't there, these are talent magnets. These, looking through the lens of an employee, these are the very things that attract people's engagement, attract them to an organization, and help retain them when there's temptations for them to leave and go somewhere else. They're powerful magnets, and people will make career decisions based on some or all or one of those magnets that is drawing and appealing to them, whether it be opportunity, whether it be purpose, which I talked more about this morning, whether it be appreciation or success. The interesting thing about this model, as we analyzed the data across almost 10,000 responses around culture, people responding to the culture of the organization they worked in, one of the interesting things we saw when it comes to recognition is that recognition has this disproportionately powerful influence on all of the others. If you look at, for example, success down here in the lower right corner, in organizations where they repeatedly are recognizing innovation and success, they have 5.3 times more innovation happening. 5.3 times more innovation when they're creating an environment where innovation is valued, where it's celebrated, where it's talked about. And I talk to organizations all over the world. That's one of their biggest priorities. How do I help inculcate innovation in my culture? How do I help fuel it? How do I fan the flames of it once it starts taking hold? Huge, huge influence is whether or not you actively express appreciation when people innovate, or even if they attempt to innovate, whether they get the intended result or not. It also influences well-being. We were interested to see if you ask somebody to rate their sense of well-being on a scale of 1 to 10, and then we asked them in the research, when was the last time you were recognized for having done some great work? For people who had been recognized in the last 30 days, their sense of well-being went up 50%. 50% better sense of well-being if they had been recognized in the last 30 days. What happens when you have better well-being? You can now access that extra creative energy that is available in that individual because they have a sense that they're on track. They have a sense of confidence and shared confidence in where they're trying to go. When you look at the influence of recognition, and we've studied it from so many angles at the O.C. Tanner Institute, and there's much other research available around this. This was by region around the world. The questions, and I'm sure you can't read the small print in the back, but if you look, for example, in Asia, where there's weak recognition, so not much recognition going on a team or in a department or a company, you have only 14% of the employees in that environment responding that they are highly engaged, compared to where there's strong recognition, where people are in fact getting noticed and appreciated and valued, you get 77% who are highly engaged on a team. Now, keep in mind, you're paying those people just the same. One of them's giving you a whole lot more engagement than the other for the same pay. And I think that's something we got to really be mindful of. There's an awful lot of power available to people once they learn to create an environment where people do feel valued and recognized when they do great work. This isn't about just sprinkling, hey, we just love every little thing everybody's doing. We're just going to shop, praise. And it's not about that. It's about when people do things that are valuable, express appreciation, and they flourish. And you see a whole lot more of where that came from. But I like to ask the question, when we talk about engagement, there's a lot of conversation around engagement, is ask this question. And I'd invite you to ask yourselves this question. When you look at those engagement scores, we talk about engagement as the noun. What does that really mean? Sometimes people treat that almost like the ends, not the means. Engaged in what? Engaged to what end? Engagement is simply the desire to apply your extra discretionary effort. It's a willingness. Unless you convert that into action, it just sits there as a willingness. And I have seen this in some of the data. I have seen people who are highly engaged who are low performers. You can have that. We have to help people become engaged in something, not just try to be engaged as some sort of state of being. What should they be engaged in? I would submit that it's got something to do with this. Good work, great work. When I say good work, what types of things come to your mind? If I just throw out the term good work, what comes to your minds? Just yell out. Thoughts? Meeting expectations, thank you. Meeting expectations, that's good work. Good work is important, by the way. I love Jim Collins' book on Good to Great, but there is one section of his book that our research would disagree with, and that is where he talks about good being the enemy of great. In our research, good is the foundation upon which great is built. You have to pay attention to those expectations. You can't ignore the expectations. You got to deliver on good. That's the 80% of what we need to do every single day. Now, when we talk about great work, what is that? What ideas come to mind when we hear the term great work? Excellence? Others? Value add. Yes. Others? Challenging. Yes. Great work is exceeding the expectation. Great work is something a little bit more, where value, new value was created. That's the stuff that is the lifeblood of every single individual's career. It's the lifeblood of every team. It's the lifeblood of every organization. What have you noticed about what happens to great work over time? Somebody did something great, and over time, what happens to that? Have you noticed? Exactly. It becomes good. It starts out like, wow, that was innovative. That was cool. That had a wow factor for me as a consumer. Like, wow, I opened this package. I'm starting to use this product. I'm like, wow, I love this product. It's like me and mango lassis, right? I'm like, oh, I love the taste of mangoes. And in a lassi, it's just incredible to me. Okay, that's just my own thing. But whatever it is that we love, over time, we start getting used to it. And so pretty soon, what started out as above expectation pretty soon drifts, and now it's good. And what happens to good over time? Bummer, right? Good becomes unacceptable over time. Now, if you think about where most of your work processes, most of the things like a job description, things like processes that run your business, where are most of those aimed? At good or at great? Kind of interesting, isn't it? Almost all of them are aimed at good. Yet the lifeblood of our future success comes from great. That's what we need to help people engage in doing. Not just sit around and be engaged, but actually convert that energy into actually doing great work, work that increases value, work that differentiates, work that creates better processes, new value to the organization. I think we all need to be more mindful of that because over the years, we've seen so much of the effort. In fact, all the way from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, the vast majority of management focus was around managing to compliance, managing to good, trying to take the variance out of the processes. What does that do over time? That starts to lock in a certain level of delivery. And I think what I see the next number of years is managing to value creation, managing to helping people, everyone on your team, find new, better ways in addition to the good that they're doing. And so I think it's just a mindset that we've all got to understand, engaged in helping individuals do great work, create new value. That's what I think this is about. And so how do we do that? I shared this particular bit of research this morning. For those of you who weren't there, we asked the question to over 1,000 workers, what is the most important thing your manager or company does or could do to cause you to do great work? Open-ended, write it in, right? And I showed you this chart earlier. Surprising. Obviously, you're going to get some people say, pay me more, promote me. We've talked about that. But the vast majority, as big as the next three combined, something to do with notice it, recognize me. If I'm going to go be engaged, the very thing we all want, and then I go do the thing that creates new value, are you going to say anything? Are you going to notice it? Do you even care? That's the heart of what people are asking here. Will it matter if I dig in and go deliver? And the loudest thing you can say if you don't want people to repeat that is say nothing. It's the loudest message there is because it sends this message, great work does not matter in this organization. That's what it says to people. And very quickly, people are very smart. If they've invested their energy, they've done some great work, nobody does anything, nobody says anything, they may try it again, but after about the third time, they go, oh, I got this figured out. That really doesn't matter. So why am I going to go invest that extra discretionary effort? Because around here it doesn't matter. So it's very important to put the focus on that and understand it and see what's happening. So I want to show you a couple of little case studies from around the world that I've seen that I've been impressed by how people have thought about this, because the question comes fairly regularly, what do you recognize? If people want to be recognized for great work, what? What do we recognize? How do we integrate that? So it's not just some separate program that sort of sits on the side like a little benefit program. How do you actually make it strategic? How do you help it reinforce who you are and who you want to be? So I want to just share with you an example from Virgin Trains. You guys familiar with Virgin Trains? One of Richard Branson's many Virgin organizations. He saw an opportunity in the railroad industry in the UK to really do something that broke out from the average and have a better experience for customers who want to take train journeys. And so they shaped the Virgin Train model after a bold, very Richard Branson-esque kind of attitude. And doesn't that sound totally like Richard Branson? It probably wouldn't work for many of our organizations, but it totally works for his organization here. Screw average, create amazing. It's a bold statement that sends a message to every employee, Our job is to create amazing. We're in an industry that in his mind is kind of sleepy, not very much customer service ever shows up. What if we break that? We're going to create amazing. That's sort of their guiding mantra. How do you go about doing that? And this next bit of work, I loved. I loved what they thought about here, because we all have values, right? We all have corporate values. We all have things that are important, and we've got things like customer service, and we've got integrity, and we've got teamwork. We all have this kind of stuff. What I loved about what they did at Virgin, and that was we worked with them, they separated the table stakes stuff, the stuff that you just have to do. If you're in the railroad business, you better be safe, right? Or you're out of business. That's a given. You better be safe. You better be reliable. You better be punctual. Those are givens. You better do that or get out of the business. You can't even make good. And do you see the separation here between good and great? Can you see it? The bottom stuff to me is all what I would consider and classify as good work. The top stuff, that's the brand defining stuff. That's the customer experience stuff. That's the stuff that they want to be known for. And so things like shaking things up, giving a damn, fun, innovation, boldness, wow factor. And then what they did next was actually break down what are some of the behaviors that are associated with those very calls to action. And I thought that was clever, because now you're taking something intangible and kind of even a little bit mystical, like a brand and create amazing and that kind of thing, and you're starting to make it more specific. And you're starting to say, this is what we mean. Look under, for example, fun, laughter, surprise, genuine warmth. Genuine warmth. Have you felt much, for those of you who've ridden trains in the UK and not been on a Virgin train, have you felt a lot of warmth from those employees? Not so much. Not so much. These guys see an opportunity to really differentiate here. All the way around, quirky, spontaneous, different. This also helps serve as a cultural guide for who they try to hire, because they're trying to help create a differentiated product and service experience. What was interesting about them as we worked together with them is that's the stuff they want to recognize. That's the stuff they want in every team meeting, on every train platform, when they're having a little team huddle before a shift begins. They're wanting to call out examples of this stuff and recognize it. And shout out, hey, I loved what you did yesterday when you met with that customer and you got them laughing after they had missed their train. That is helping the customer feel a sense of joy and a sense of happiness. You found a way to do that. Awesome. Love it. And then recognize that. Reward that. Make sense? Clever. Align your recognition strategies right to the stuff that's most important to you, and you'll get a whole lot more of it. Because you can't beat people in. You can't sort of force them into coming up with those above and beyond things. It comes out of them as a gift from them to you and to your customers. You encourage that gift by expressing appreciation when you see it happen. We help them with both online, an app, because really so many of those folks that are working on trains just rely on their apps for everything. And they also have some paper-based, simple little cards, simple little things to say thank you, to reinforce this incredible brand that they're trying to drive. And that red is sort of their core color. And so incredible was the theme and so forth that we generated around it. The other thing that we did was help them to encourage them to speak from the very top of the organization and send a message to the entire organization. This stuff matters. So what are a couple of best practices as we wrap this up before we go to questions? A few thoughts. One, I like to think about recognition and a recognition strategy as having at least these three parts. First, up in the upper left corner, is around encouraging effort. Encouraging effort. Don't just wait until somebody has done something great before you cheer them on, right? It's like sitting in a cricket match or a football match and holding your applause the entire match, and at the very end, look at the score. Like, okay, yeah, let's clap now. That's a good score. That's the result, right? That seems a little bit preposterous when we're watching a game. But sometimes in business, people kind of think that way. No, we'll see. We'll see if they do something great, and then we'll kind of cheer them on. I think people need that praise of effort, that encouragement for the small things along the way. That's the stuff that just needs to be part of, sort of like he said, in our ethos, just in what we do, how we think about it. When somebody does it, do that in team huddles, when you have your little team meeting. And if you're a manager, you don't have to come up with all of this. Crowdsource it from the team that is right there. They see things that the manager doesn't see. Encourage them at the beginning of a meeting, hey, what cool things have we seen in the last day, week, month, whenever it's been since we've had our last meeting? And let people call each other out on cool things they've done and cool things they've seen. You know what that does? It builds this really powerful sense of camaraderie, and it builds a feeling of success. People feel like, wow, all the way around, I keep hearing examples of great things that we're doing. I feel like I'm on a winning team. Even if the organization may be going through more difficult times, especially important to do this to help cheer people on. Rewarding results is another really essential ingredient to a great recognition strategy. When somebody's done something awesome, boy, celebrate it, talk about it, gather people together, encourage it, because that serves as a beautiful model, better than you could write up and put on a poster. Somebody who's just done something awesome is the perfect model for everybody else to see and then to be inspired by and to move forward. Oops. And then the last one is celebrate the careers. Many of us celebrate people at 1, 3, 5, 10, 15 years. And too often I hear people wanting to think about celebrating them for just having passed the clock for 15 years. Hey, congratulations on 10 years of survival. 10 years, hey, you're still here. Wow, your badge still works. Way to go. Way to last it out. Way to be here 10 years. It's got really nothing to do with the calendar. It's about 10 years of amazing contribution. When you're recognizing somebody, celebrate the great work they've done. If you're not sure because you're a new manager over somebody who's just moved onto your team, go talk to the people they've worked with. And pretty soon, you'll hear some of the stories of great work they've done across their career. That's the stuff we want to encourage, because people who encourage people to build careers at your organization choose to stay at your organization when they're tempted to move on to something else. It's interesting. Recognition has a very powerful multiplier effect, and I would encourage you to think about it. A lot of people aren't thinking this way. They think, oh, the person receiving the recognition, that's the biggest value. No, not true. The value is also generated to the giver, because it connects that leader or that peer to that employee in a much more powerful way, and all of those observers. And that's why I encourage you, whenever possible, make recognition public. Once in a while, I hear stories of somebody who says, hey, come into my office for a minute. They come in, they sit down. Hey, I want to tell you, great work. You did such a great job. I don't want you to tell anybody else, because they may be jealous. Great job, great job. Okay, now leave my office, close the door, and don't look like anything happened. It's like, what are you thinking? That person's walking out going, wow, I think I just got recognized, but I can't say anything about it, right? It's madness. It's madness. Make it public. Make it public, because everybody else gets to see the very things that you're trying to be known for and stand for. It's a powerful model, and it sends a signal to them. Maybe, when was the last time I did some great work? And maybe I have an opportunity to do something on this next project, and you know what? I think it's going to be recognized if I decide to really invest and go after it. So powerful thing to do. Your giver, the giver themselves, their level of engagement goes up significantly when they give recognition. Not just receive it, give it. Powerful thing to understand. Few other quick tips. Frequency, really important with recognition. The more stingy and rare it is, the more politicized it becomes. If you have one employee of the year once a year, what is the rest of the 99.9% of the people thinking? Oh my gosh, he's been recognized. He's a loser. I should have been the one being recognized. Or, man, I'll never be able to do that, so I'll never get recognition in this company. Make it frequent, and pretty soon, that's how it becomes part of your culture. Make it timely. Don't wait. Don't save up recognition. I hear this once in a while. You know, somebody does something awesome, the manager writes it down. You know, in December of this year, I'm going to remember to say something to that person in their performance review. I'm like, great for their performance review. How about say thank you right now? How about thank them? How about appreciate them now? And then bring it up again in the performance review. Timeliness is essential in this. Another one is inclusive. Make sure that you have a way for everybody to participate in recognition. Doesn't mean everybody's been getting recognition all the time, because then it becomes meaningless. It needs to be there, but it needs to include everybody needs to be able to be recognized when they do great work. Everybody. And so people have all kinds of ways that we can do that. And like I say, if you tier it, anybody can get an e-card, anybody can get a pat on the back and a little note, but not everybody can get a President's Award, right? So just simply tier it, and that way you make it inclusive. Make it performance-based. Always, always talk about the performance that they did. I want to end with this. What do you say when you recognize somebody who does great work? This is a powerful concept to understand, and I'll leave you with this. I get asked this all over the world. What do I say? I don't want to mess it up. I want to do this right. Somebody just did something cool. What do I say? Here it is. I love to windsurf. I used to be a competition windsurfer. We'd be in waves like this all over the place, and you can land that like this. That guy can land it, providing he does one thing. He manages his sail very carefully. You lose control of your sail, you're toast. Manage that sail. So this term sail, it's an acronym that I'll have you guys remember. I think you'll remember this your whole life. And so if you have to go recognize somebody tomorrow morning, you'll learn the sail and you'll be able to do it and do a fantastic job. So here there's 4 steps to it, and we'll wrap on that. First is talk about the situation. Talk about the situation, the context. What happened? What was going on? What was the setting in which now this person has chosen to do something great, okay? Situation. Next, talk about the action. What was the action that person took? What specifically did they do? Here's the place where specifics really matter. Don't be general. If I say, hey, I just want to say thank you for what you did. What you did was great. Just keep doing whatever it was that you did. What's he thinking? He's thinking, that guy has absolutely no clue what I even did. So it's not going to feel like recognition. It's just going to feel mechanical. It's going to feel fake. It's going to feel phony. But if you talk specifically, man, you did an awesome job of emceeing this event. I love the humor you brought in. I love the things that you did. Specifics. More specific, the better. Because then people go, I get it. He gets it. He gets exactly what I did, okay? That's the second one, action. The third one, talk about the impact. What difference was made because of what they did? That's the why. What difference did they make? Talk about that. That's great work. That's the stuff we love. I love recognizing people and talking about this because the difference-making stuff, that's the stuff our team needs to deliver on all day long to be awesome at what they're doing. And finally, the last thing, link it back to what your company stands for. Link it back to what you want to become. And remember in the back of your mind the example that I gave you of Virgin Trains. Virgin Trains does this really, really well. They link it right back to, and that's what it's creating wow. That's what you just did, so that everyone in the organization hears that whole flow, and that's how to give a great recognition award or presentation on anything. Okay, does that make sense? You guys got this? Sail. You're just going to sail through the next presentation that you give when you recognize somebody. Easy to do. It will always be sincere, and it will always land well. So with that, I just want to encourage you. Think about the great work that's going on in your organization. It's happening. Throw some fuel on that. Help people know that when they're doing that, they're engaging in doing things that make a difference. Be the first one to help celebrate that. Rally people around that. And if you build a culture where greatness is valued, I'm telling you, you become unstoppable as a culture, and people join your organization to accomplish the things that you're capable of doing. So thank you again for your time today. So questions? Yes, sir.
Don't make recognition inside a box and go out loud, celebrate it, and all of that. What if 90% of your organization is already following that? How do you actually get these people to sail?
Great question. So if the majority of your organization, it's very quiet, how do you begin to cultivate it and shift the culture? That's the question, right? I think it starts in small steps. I think it can start in pockets. Start in your teams. Make sure your teams are doing this. Do it yourself. Help others start to do it. Modeling the behavior, helping leaders do this. I was sharing with a couple of folks here today what to do when your CEO really isn't into this at all. How do you do that? Help tee them up. If he's a bit of a grump and he hasn't really recognized somebody before, he doesn't even know what that feels like. Set him up. So if your CEO, for example, has a direct report who's coming up on, let's say, a 10-year anniversary with a company, you as an HR leader can help prepare him. Say, I'm just going to help prepare you so that when you give this presentation to him, you're going to be ready and it's going to be awesome. Tee them up to have a good experience, and once you taste it, you get it. Sometimes people just don't get it until they receive it and until they give it. And I think that's a powerful way. I think the other is just communicate it. Give people permission. A lot of people don't think they have permission to appreciate and express appreciation to other people. So I think it takes a series of communications. I think it takes talking about it at the senior level to say this is an important ingredient to our future success. So let's start talking about putting some strategies in place. And you may start with just noticing effort, and then you move to rewarding results. Right? There's lots of different approaches that you can take to helping set that up. But I would just say start on it and you'll start to see some real success. Okay, I think we're out of time. So again, thank you very much. If you have further questions, I'll be in the back and maybe we can follow up and chat. Thank you.